Eleni's faith taught her that love was a sacred vow, but her heart knew a truth her religion called a sin. When cool, composed Freya moved into her sun-drenched Amsterdam apartment, Eleni's carefully guarded world shattered. Every glance, every accidental touch, was a prayer and a betrayal. She was falling in love with a woman, and the cost would be everything: her family's acceptance, her place in the church, and the very identity she'd fought so hard to protect. But to deny this love felt like denying her own soul, even if it meant walking away from everyone she'd ever loved. Like and subscribe. It really helps support the channel and keeps new content coming. The golden light of Prinsengracht. The late summer sun in Amsterdam was a forgiving artist. It painted the 17th-century canal houses in warm, honeyed gold, glinted off the windows of slow-moving barges, and dappled the cobblestones under the leafy canopy of linden trees. For most, it was a postcard-perfect day. For Eleni Papadopoulos, the beauty felt like a taunt. The light streaming into her expensive, beautiful room on the Prinsengracht illuminated every crack in her carefully constructed facade. The room was her sanctuary and her millstone. The view was a dream: the gentle sway of houseboats, the elegant gabled roofs standing shoulder to shoulder like wise old men, but the rent was a nightmare. Her salary as a junior archivist at the Stadsarchief was devoured by it, leaving her with a constant, low-grade hum of anxiety that played counterpoint to the hymns she whispered in the cool, hallowed silence of the Oude Kerk. Eleni was a living contradiction. She found profound peace in the rituals of her Greek Orthodox faith: the smell of incense, the glow of votive candles, the resonant chant of the liturgy. Yet, her very essence felt like a sin in that sacred space. She was a lesbian. She had known it with unshakable certainty since her adolescence, a truth as fundamental as the blood in her veins. But it was a truth locked in a lead box within her heart, heavy and terrifying. Her family in Nicosia, devout and deeply traditional, saw her time in tolerant Amsterdam as a temporary adventure. They awaited her return, her marriage to a good Greek boy from their community, the grandchildren that would follow. Their love was a warm, smothering blanket, and the spectre of their disappointment was an ice-cold blade. Desperation was the key that unlocked the box. Hands trembling slightly, she drafted an online advertisement. Room available in beautiful canal house. 2 roommates sought to share expenses. Must be clean, respectful, LGBTQ+ friendly. Adding that last part was an act of immense courage, a tiny, brave flag planted in the soil of her life. She prayed not to the stern God of her father's understanding, but to the spirit of love itself for the right people to find it. The responses were a mixed bag. A DJ who asked about the party potential. A couple who wanted to use the living room for aerial silk practice. And then, 2 replies that felt like fate. The first was from Marisol. Her email was a burst of energy. Hoi! I'm Marisol, from Barcelona. I'm about to start my master's in clinical psychology at the UVA. I'm a focused student, but I love to cook. My paella will change your life, and I promise to keep my chaos contained to my room. Your place sounds like the perfect home base for my adventures. The second was from Freya. It was a study in efficiency. Dear Eleni, my name is Freya de Vries. I am a senior data strategist at ASML. I am seeking a quiet, stable, and adult living environment closer to the city centre. I am organized, financially solvent, and respect shared boundaries. I am available to view the room at your convenience. Kind regards, Freya. They arrived to view the room on the same sun-drenched afternoon. Marisol came first, a whirlwind of dark, curly hair, a wide, gap-toothed smile, and a brightly patterned dress that seemed to hold the spirit of a Spanish summer. She talked with her hands, her energy infectious, immediately filling the space with life. She admired Eleni's collection of historical novels, asked thoughtful questions about the building's history, and declared the light in the kitchen perfect for growing herbs. Eleni felt an instant, easy comfort with her. Freya arrived precisely on time. Where Marisol was vibrant warmth, Freya was cool, composed elegance. She was tall and poised, dressed in an impeccably tailored linen trouser suit, her platinum blonde hair swept back in a severe but stylish ponytail. Her handshake was firm, her gaze intelligent and assessing. She moved through the apartment with a quiet, efficient grace, noting the storage solutions, the energy rating of the appliances, the robustness of the internet connection. She was stunningly beautiful in a way that made Eleni's breath catch, a sharp, architectural beauty that was utterly intimidating. "The space is adequate and the location is optimal," Freya stated, her voice calm and measured. "The financial terms are acceptable. I am prepared to move forward." In the end, Eleni chose them both. Marisol took the smaller, sunnier room at the back overlooking a quiet courtyard. Freya took the room next to Eleni's, with its coveted sliver of a canal view. The old house on Prinsengracht, silent for so long, began to breathe with a new, tripartite heartbeat. The first month was a delicate ballet of negotiation and observation. Marisol's domain in the bathroom was a joyful explosion of scented oils, hair masks, and thick textbooks with titles like Psychopathology, a comprehensive guide and the dynamics of human relationships. Freya's side was a minimalist masterpiece. One toothpaste, one facial cleanser, one moisturizer, all aligned at perfect right angles. Eleni existed in the comfortable middle ground. Freya was a ghost of impeccable routine. She left at 7:15 a.m., returned by 6:30 p.m., and often spent the evening on her laptop in her room, the soft blue glow visible under her door. She was polite but reserved, her formidable intellect a visible barrier. Eleni found herself unconsciously scheduling her life around Freya's patterns, finding excuses to be in the kitchen brewing tea when she heard Freya's key in the lock. One evening, Eleni was hunched over a particularly frustrating 18th-century merchant's ledger, squinting at the faded, florid script. "Deciphering the past?" a calm voice inquired from the doorway. Eleni started. Freya stood there, holding a mug of tea, her head tilted in a gesture of curiosity. "Trying to," Eleni sighed, pushing her hair back. "It's like they were taught to write by spiders dipped in ink." Freya offered a small, rare smile. "May I?" She approached and leaned over Eleni's shoulder. A faint, clean scent of sandalwood and fresh linen washed over Eleni, making her heart stutter. Freya's finger, with its perfectly manicured nail, hovered just above the page. "See this contraction? It's not goods but guilders. And this symbol here refers to the interest rate agreed upon in Rotterdam. The patterns are consistent once you know the key." "You know paleography?" Eleni asked, amazed. "My first master's was in economic history," Freya said, straightening up. "Data is data, whether it's silicon or parchment. It all tells a story." She retreated as quietly as she had arrived, leaving Eleni with a whirlwind of new, exhilarating thoughts and a crush that felt like free fall. Marisol was the social catalyst. She instituted family dinner every Sunday, declaring it non-negotiable. She attempted Dutch recipes with a fiery Spanish flair, filling the apartment with delicious smells and laughter. She was endlessly curious, a natural psychologist even outside the classroom. "So, Eleni," she asked one night over a bottle of Rioja, "your family is back in Cyprus. Very religious, yes? That must be complicated." Eleni froze, the wine glass hovering near her lips. She hadn't explicitly come out to them. She glanced at Marisol's open, genuinely curious face, then at Freya, who was watching her intently, her expression unreadable. It's fine. They're just far away," Eleni deflected, the old fear rising like bile. Marisol, perceptive, immediately softened. "Ah, la familia. My abuela still asks if I've met a handsome torero in Amsterdam. The concept of a woman not needing a man to be complete is foreign." She laughed, but there was a shadow in her eyes. Freya spoke, her voice quiet but clear in the room. "Your personal life is your own, Eleni. You owe no one an explanation." It wasn't offered as comfort, but as a simple, incontrovertible fact. In that moment, Eleni felt a surge of gratitude so powerful it threatened to overwhelm her. As autumn painted the city in fiery hues, the dynamic within the apartment deepened. Freya began to emerge from her shell. She joined dinners more regularly, and though she spoke less, her observations were piercingly insightful and often dryly humorous. Eleni discovered her hidden thoughtfulness. Freya noticed when Eleni had a headache and would leave a packet of her favorite Greek herbal tea by her kettle. She quietly fixed the dripping tap in Marisol's bathroom without being asked. Eleni's attraction blossomed into a profound, all-consuming love. It was a constant ache, a beautiful torture. She lay awake at night, imagining the feel of Freya's skin, the weight of her body, the softness of her lips. The desire was intertwined with a deep-seated guilt, a relic of her upbringing that whispered sin in the dark. The catalyst came on a night Freya came home unusually late. Eleni was reading on the sofa when she heard the key fumble in the lock. Freya stepped in, her usually flawless ponytail coming loose, her jacket slung over her arm. She wasn't drunk, but she was visibly unsettled, her cool composure cracked. "Rough day?" Eleni asked, setting her book down. Freya sighed, a rare sound of exhaustion from her. A project imploded. A data error that should have been caught. I spent 6 hours rebuilding a predictive model because someone didn't understand the patterns. She sank into an armchair, rubbing her temples. It's frustrating. They see the numbers, but they don't see the story they tell. They hear me speak, but they don't listen to the logic. She looked up at Eleni, and for the first time, Eleni saw a glimpse of vulnerability in her blue eyes. It's a lonely feeling. Being perpetually misunderstood. Without a second thought, Eleni crossed the room and knelt beside her chair. She placed her hand over Freya's. "I understand," she said softly. "I listen." The touch was electric. Freya's gaze dropped to their hands, then slowly rose to meet Eleni's. The air in the room grew thick and still, charged with months of unspoken tension. Freya turned her hand and laced her fingers through Eleni's. Her touch was cool, but it sent a wave of fire through Eleni's veins. "Do you?" Freya whispered, the question hanging between them. Eleni's world narrowed to the space between their faces. She leaned in, her heart hammering a wild, hopeful rhythm against her ribs. It was a question, an offering, a leap of faith. Freya didn't retreat. Her eyes fluttered closed. The kiss was not tentative. It was a culmination. It tasted of mint and the faint bitterness of coffee and something uniquely, essentially Freya. It was intelligent and searching and utterly devastating. Freya's hands came up to frame Eleni's face, her touch not hesitant but sure, as if she, too, had mapped this moment in her mind. Eleni felt the locked box within her burst open, light and terror and glorious freedom flooding out. When they finally parted, breathless, Freya rested her forehead against Eleni's, her eyes wide with a dazed wonder that mirrored Eleni's own feeling. "I think I've wanted to do that since the day I saw you deciphering that ledger," Eleni confessed, her voice unsteady. "I know," Freya replied, her voice husky. "My analysis indicated a 97.3% probability of mutual attraction. But the reality," she paused, truly at a loss for words for the first time, "the data was insufficient to prepare me for this." They spent the night wrapped in each other in Eleni's bed, talking, exploring, learning the geography of each other's bodies and histories. It was a night of revelation, not just of physical intimacy, but of emotional surrender. The next morning, the reality was a complex tapestry of joy and fear. Over coffee, their hands found each other on the table, fingers intertwined. Marisol, stumbling into the kitchen for water, stopped dead. Her sleep-filled eyes took in their joined hands, the soft, intimate smiles, the new energy that crackled between them. A brilliant, triumphant grin spread across her face. "Lo sabía. I knew it. The UST in this apartment has been off the charts. I was about to write a paper on it." She laughed, enveloping them both in a hug. "I'm so happy for you." But for Eleni, the joy was now shadowed by a towering, familiar anxiety. This was real. She was in a loving, committed relationship with a woman. The wall she had built between her life in Amsterdam and her life in Nicosia had been breached. The first phone call with her mother after that was agony. "Iyeti show, moromo?" "You sound different," her mother said, her intuition sharp across the miles. "I'm just happy, Mama," Eleni said, her eyes locked with Freya's, drawing strength. "Good, good. And work is okay. You're eating. Any nice boys at your work? A Dutch boy might be serious, you know." Eleni's throat tightened. "No, Mama. No nice boys." The lie tasted like ash. She began a campaign of subtle hints, dropping fragile clues into their conversations. She talked about her friend Freya constantly. She mentioned going to a film festival featuring LGBTQ+ themes, calling it interesting. Her mother's responses were polite but bewildered. "Why do you fill your head with such things, Agape Mao? It's not our way." The dissonance became unbearable. The radiant happiness she found with Freya existed in direct opposition to the crushing weight of familial expectation. She began to retreat. She cancelled dates, citing fatigue. She became irritable, snapping over misplaced mugs. The rituals of her faith, once a comfort, now felt like a condemnation. Lighting a candle in her room brought no peace, only the echoing voice of a priest from her childhood preaching about abominations. She stopped going to church altogether, which spawned a new round of worried calls from her mother. One night, after a call where her father had spent 20 minutes extolling the virtues of the son of a family friend, a good, pious boy who was now a dentist in Frankfurt, she shattered. She slid to the floor of her room, sobs racking her body. "They have my entire life mapped out," she wept to Freya, who held her tightly. "And I'm not in it. The real me is a ghost in their plan. They love a version of me that doesn't exist." Freya held her, her embrace a silent fortress. Marisol, hearing the distress, came in and sat on the floor with them, a steady, supportive presence. "Eleni," Marisol said softly, her voice gentle but firm, "what you're experiencing is a profound psychological conflict. You're trying to reconcile two core parts of your identity that your environment has told you are incompatible. The stress is immense. It's not a weakness, it's a rational response to an impossible situation." "It feels like I'm being split in two," Eleni choked out. "You are not the problem," Freya stated, her voice low and intense. "The problem is a flawed premise. Their premise is based on tradition and interpretation, not on empirical data. The data is you. You are good and kind, and you love me. And I love you. This love is objectively positive. Any system that rejects this data is itself invalid." Her logical deconstruction of the issue was, to Eleni, more comforting than any platitude. But logic couldn't silence the toxic shame. The world lost its color. The golden light of Amsterdam turned grey. The loving messages from her family felt like accusations. The thought of their rejection became a black hole, pulling her in. One evening, staring at the tranquil canal, a terrifyingly calm thought surfaced. It would be so quiet. The pressure would stop. I could just let go. The sheer horror of the thought, a sin her faith unequivocally condemned, shocked her into action. She woke Freya, her body trembling violently. I need help," she stammered. "I thought something. I'm scared." Freya, ever the strategist, moved into action with calm precision. By morning, she had secured an emergency appointment with a therapist renowned for her work with LGBTQ+ individuals navigating religious trauma. Marisol cancelled her classes to accompany them, a united front. Therapy was grueling. It meant excavating a lifetime of internalized homophobia, challenging deeply ingrained beliefs, and rebuilding her sense of self from the ground up. It was the hardest work she had ever done. But it was also her salvation. She began to forge her own faith, one that could encompass a God of love, not of punishment. She decided she couldn't do this over the phone. She needed to write. The letter took her a week. Pages and pages filled with her neat, looping script. She wrote about the loneliness of her childhood, the constant feeling of being wrong. She wrote about meeting Freya, and how it felt less like a choice and more like coming home. She wrote about her love for her family, her culture, her faith, and her desperate need to integrate all parts of herself. She pleaded for their understanding, not their permission. She sent it and entered a state of suspended animation. The silence was deafening. 2 days of nothing. Then, her mother called. Her voice was raw, shredded with tears. "Eleni, my heart, we got your letter. Your father, he has not left his chair. He just stares out the window." Eleni's heart shattered into a million pieces.
"I'm so sorry, Mama."
"Do not be sorry for your truth," her mother said, the words a struggle. "Be sorry you carried it alone. We are your parents. Our job is to love you. The church says one thing, but my heart, It is breaking for my child's pain. We are coming to Amsterdam. We need to see you. We need to see her. Their arrival was fraught with a palpable tension. Her father, a man who always stood with proud posture, seemed diminished, his shoulders slumped. He couldn't look at Eleni directly. Her mother hugged her fiercely, her body trembling. Freya was magnificent. She didn't try to hard sell their relationship. She was simply, authentically herself, poised, intelligent, and utterly devoted to their daughter. She spoke to them with respect, answering their questions about her work, her family, who, she explained, had also needed time to adjust, and her future plans. She didn't flinch from their scrutiny. The turning point came on the second evening. They were sitting in the living room, the setting sun casting long shadows. Eleni's father finally spoke, his voice gravelly with emotion. "This life," he began, staring at his hands. "The world is not kind to those who are different. It will be a difficult path. People will talk. They will judge." "I know, Baba," Eleni said softly. He looked up, first at Eleni, then at Freya, his eyes glistening. "I left my village with nothing. I worked my hands to the bone so my children would not know hardship. So they would have an easier life." He gestured around the beautiful apartment. "And you have chosen a hard road." Freya stood and walked over to him. She didn't touch him, but she knelt slightly to be at his eye level, her gaze steady and sincere. "Mr. Papadopoulos," she said, her voice clear and calm. "I understand your concern. My goal is not to make Eleni's life easy. My goal is to build a life with her that is so strong, so full of respect and joy, that the hardships don't matter. I will be beside her for all of it. That is my commitment. That is my data." He held her gaze for a long, silent moment. Then, he gave a single, slow nod. It wasn't approval. It was the acknowledgement of a formidable opponent, or perhaps, the first glimpse of a powerful ally. The true catalyst, however, was Marisol. Over a dinner she had cooked, a valiant attempt at moussaka, Eleni's mother, still trying to comprehend, turned to her. "And you, Carissimo? Your family, they are okay with this life? With all of this?" Marisol put down her fork. She had been quiet, a supportive observer. "My family is traditional, in a different way. They think I'm here to study, then come home and marry a nice Catalan man. I've dated men. It was fine, pleasant." She paused, gathering her thoughts, her psychologist's insight blending with personal honesty. She gestured to Eleni and Freya, who were sitting close together, Freya's hand resting protectively on Eleni's knee. "But look at them. Really look. Do you see how Freya knows what Eleni needs before she says it? Do you see how Eleni makes Freya smile in a way that reaches her eyes? This isn't a lifestyle. This is love. It's the most real, natural thing I've ever seen. If I am ever lucky enough to find a connection like that, with a man, a woman, anyone, I will grab it with both hands and never let go. That's all any of us want." Her words, heartfelt and irrefutable, hung in the air. Eleni's mother looked from Marisol's earnest face to her daughter's face, which was radiant with a happiness she hadn't seen in years. She saw the quiet devotion in Freya's posture, the protective way she leaned toward Eleni. She saw not sin, but sanctuary. Not rebellion, but home. A sound escaped her, a half-sob, half-sigh of surrender. "Okay," she whispered, the word bursting with emotion. She reached out, taking both Eleni and Freya's hands in her own. "Okay." The journey from that choked okay to wholehearted acceptance was long and winding. There were more tearful conversations, strained interactions with aunts and uncles, and difficult decisions about family weddings and church events. But her parents stayed. They chose their daughter. Over a year later, as autumn again painted the city in gold, Eleni and Freya were married in a small, secular ceremony in the Hortus Botanicus, surrounded by ancient trees and their chosen family. Eleni had woven her faith into the day by having a progressive Greek Orthodox friend read a blessing from the Song of Songs. Her father, standing tall and proud, walked her down the path. He placed her hand in Freya's and said, his voice firm and clear, "You protect her happiness. That is your job now." Marisol was the officiant, beaming with pride. Her own journey of self-discovery had led her to confidently embrace her pansexuality. She was dating a brilliant and kind woman from her psychology program, and her own family, inspired by the Papadopoulos' evolution, was slowly coming around. The world, as predicted, was not always kind. An anonymous, hate-filled letter arrived at Eleni's work. They were subjected to a slur yelled from a passing car. Each incident was a sting, a reminder of a harsh external reality. Eleni felt the old shadows sometimes, the pull of the abyss. But now, she had an arsenal of light. She had her coping strategies from therapy. She had Freya, her logical, steadfast anchor. She had Marisol, her fierce and loving sister. And she had her parents. After the incident with the slur, her mother had called, her voice vibrating with a fury only a mother could possess. "You give me a name, a time, a description," she demanded. "I will call them myself. Nobody gets to hurt my daughters." They never left the house on Prinsengracht. It was their home, their sanctuary. Marisol remained, her own relationship thriving, her bond with Eleni and Freya an unbreakable thread in the fabric of their lives. They were a family, built not by chance, but by choice, resilience, and an unwavering, triumphant love. One evening, years later, Eleni stood on their balcony, watching the sun set over the canal, setting the water ablaze with orange and pink. Freya came up behind her, wrapping her arms around her waist and resting her cheek against Eleni's hair. "What are you thinking about?" Freya murmured. Eleni leaned back into the solid, wonderful certainty of her wife's embrace. She thought of the fear, the letter, the tears, the wedding, the ordinary, breathtaking happiness of every day since. "I'm thinking," Eleni said, turning in her arms to kiss her, her heart full to bursting, "that the light feels like a blessing now." Final chapter. The house on Prinsengracht was quiet, save for the soft murmur of the city beyond the windows and the gentle clinking of teacups. 3 years. It felt like a lifetime and the blink of an eye. Eleni set a slice of vassalopita on a plate, the traditional Greek New Year's cake, her fingers brushing the lucky coin hidden within. This year, for the first time, her mother had shipped the cake herself, with a note that read, "For my 3 girls." Freya sat on the sofa, her legs tucked under her, reading a report. The setting sun caught the platinum band on her left hand, making it gleam. On her own hand, Eleni's matching band felt not like a piece of jewelry, but like an anchor, a constant, warm reminder of a love that had fought a war and won. Marisol bustled in from the kitchen, carrying a tray of loukoumades she'd attempted, dusted with cinnamon and honey. "Okay," the recipe said, light and airy. "I think I got dense and hopeful," she announced, but she was beaming. Her own journey had found its happy ending with Lena, the woman from her program, who would be joining them later. Eleni's phone buzzed on the coffee table. A video call. Her father's name flashed on the screen. A few years ago, that sight would have sent a bolt of anxiety through her. Now, she felt only a warm anticipation. She answered, and her parents' faces filled the screen, smiling from their living room in Nicosia. "Year SARS. Happy New Year," her mother chirped. "Happy New Year, Mama, Baba," Eleni said, tilting the screen to show Freya and Marisol waving. "How is the weather?" her father asked, his voice warm and familiar. "Grey," Freya answered, ever factual, but with a softness in her eyes that was reserved only for family. "But we are warm." "And the vassalopita?" her mother asked, leaning closer to the screen. "Who found the coin?" Eleni cut 3 slices, serving Freya and Marisol. She took a bite of her own, and her teeth met something hard. She pulled the coin from her mouth, holding it up. "Eleni!" Her mother clapped her hands. "Good luck for the year. It means good things." "It means she'll have to do the dishes for a year," Marisol joked. They talked for a while, the conversation easy and filled with laughter. Her father asked Freya about a new project at work, genuinely interested in her explanation of data algorithms. Her mother asked Marisol for the loukoumades recipe, promising to send her own in return. After the call ended, the apartment settled back into its comfortable silence. Marisol scrolled through her phone, texting Lena. Freya put her report aside and opened her arm. Eleni curled into her side, her head finding its perfect spot on Freya's shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of sandalwood and home. She looked around the room, at the bookshelves crammed with her history texts and Freya's scientific journals and Marisol's psychology manuals, at the vibrant Spanish tapestry hanging beside a minimalist Dutch print, at the icon of the Virgin Mary that her mother had sent, now sitting comfortably on the same shelf as a photo from Amsterdam Pride. The journey had been carved into her, like the grooves on the ancient ledgers she restored. The scars of fear and rejection were still there if she looked for them, but they no longer defined her. They were reminders of the strength it had taken to get here. She had faced the deepest darkness, within herself and from the world outside. She had wrestled with her God and found a faith that was broader, deeper, and more compassionate. She had risked losing her family and had instead, miraculously, found a way to bring them into her truth. Freya pressed a kiss to her temple. "What are you thinking?" she murmured, her voice a vibration against Eleanor's skin. Eleanor thought of the girl she had been, trembling as she wrote an ad, terrified of being truly seen. She thought of the relentless, forgiving light of Amsterdam that had witnessed her struggle and her triumph. She tilted her head up to look at her wife, at the clear, intelligent eyes that saw every part of her and loved her still. She saw Marisol, her chosen sister, whose unwavering support had been a lifeline. "I'm thinking," Eleanor said, her voice thick with an emotion that was pure and whole and entirely joyful, "that we're home." It wasn't just the apartment on the canal. It was this peace, this acceptance, this love, chosen and fought for, that had built a family far stronger than any she could have ever imagined. The story wasn't about a struggle anymore. It was simply about this, her hand in Freya's, the future bright and unknown before them, and the quiet, unshakable certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together.